Perfect. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Market analysis for Monday, April 14th. We're going to start off with the Dow Jones, as we can see that after the big drop that we experienced there last week, throughout this, 2 weekends ago, this last week, it managed to rally its way back and find itself just underneath this long-term support here. So in order for us to know that this market is going to continue going upwards, we actually need to see this line here at the 40,060 level. That line right there, we need to get a good solid jump above it, and preferably even rise above this little notch right there. It's got a ways to go before it does that. It's totally capable of doing that. We've seen it recover that much in the past. However, with the amount of uncertainty that has come forward as a result of the tariffs, as a result of the US bond yields, especially with what's happening in Japan right now, and how the Central Bank of Japan, the Bank of Japan, is it's hoping that it can print enough to maintain its position within those future prices for the U.S. Treasuries. That's really what it boils down to. We're waiting to see what happens. I don't believe that we will be rallying, coming back forward. I believe that this will provide resistance, and that the next shoe to drop, so to speak, is going to bring the prices down to likely within the era where Biden was president. We may even, actually we can see that just before COVID, the high that we had just before COVID was right, let me see here. Oh, that doesn't work. This here was the high that occurred right before COVID. That became the low of Biden's reign. And where we are right now, I believe that if we were to fall again, it would likely bring us first to this level here, the 34,000 area, where there was some resistance and support. But then beyond that, I believe we'll settle around these lows here. So if it drops that much, it's a pretty significant drop. 27% drop. And people say, well, that's just way too much. Yeah, well, what we experienced from the all-time high earlier this year to the drop that we experienced last week, that was already 18%. So, and that's just the start. Like, this is a biblical wealth a wealth transfer of biblical proportions. And so when that money goes, when this market goes down, we know that money is being transferred. It's being moved from one form into another. That's why I say this really isn't a recession in the sense that we are familiar with the word. It's a transfer of wealth from one allocation to another. In fact, the commodity itself is different. The commodity itself is digital. It's data. Everything that dropped, we saw $5 trillion fall out of the market 2 weeks ago. $5 trillion. Where did it go? Well, it didn't disappear. It got transferred into another form. That's why this is going down in value, because this old form of measuring the market is becoming obsolete. So again, that's why I believe that we'll see more downturn in the markets. And I'm excited about it because it means that we're getting closer to the day where all of this has come to fruition. And then I can start talking about more important things about the future instead of these little emergencies that people are currently experiencing. Let's go ahead and check out the gold prices, which are again creating all-time highs consistently. In fact, just as the markets crashed, there was a day or two where it went down because people, typically speaking, whenever they see that, they go and trade out their assets on the market. Well, gold being primarily sold with paper contracts, those paper contracts got sold because the crash is visible. And whenever that happens, people cling to their cash. And so this pullback here in gold found some support at this previous resistance at 29.53 US. And since that time, it's been going up, and it formed a high yesterday and again met it already today at 32.46. Well, that right there is a significant rise of 9.58%. That for gold, that is a very volatile market to have that happen in a period of 4 or 5 days. Right now, we're a little bit down from that all-time high. I would say that we'll likely see some support, maybe coming back to this area here, right there. So coming back down and finding support here would be a good spot for it to continue moving up. Be mindful, though, that it may also come down to this support here, given the fact that this drop here was really measured by just the people who were panicking about the stock markets. They were always fighting against the bulls, and they just happened to take over from here, this point onward. So with this movement, as volatile as it was, we can expect a nice retracement. So it could come down to here before going up. This one would be a healthier retracement, finding more volume at the lower price point, which then would drive that price up even faster. Moving on, I'm going to also talk about the bank or the Japan 225. So this is the Nikkei, which is similar to the US 30, an index of the top companies within Japan. And this index here, as you can see, it dropped down and actually came to find support at a support that was found back on August 5th of last summer. This drop here was significant. I remember when that occurred. And what happened was, to alleviate this, the Bank of Japan went into printing mode. And of course, it was not able to rally back to its previous highs. And that's why we're seeing a lot of this dip right now and finding that support again here. Well, since that time, it's only been bouncing back up a little bit, not even to find the previous. Like this here would be the area for it to retreat, to come back to, but it didn't even make it. And so I believe that this is indicative of the Bank of Japan not being able to print their money fast enough to buy their positions and maintain their position in the market. Basically, they're being liquidated. And that is a very catastrophic thing for the banks, to have a central bank like that get liquidated out of their positions of the US Treasuries. For whatever reason, they think that they're worth something, and so they're pumping money into it. Likely it's because of how interconnected their economies are, and they recognize that they got to pull their weight if they want to expect the US markets also to survive this. And so it's just a mitigation tactic that they're currently using. Moving on to silver, we can see that it's not providing the same market structure that gold is at the moment, and I believe that's just because of the market manipulation that it receives is a lot higher than what gold receives, and also we can see that this up and down movement is getting quite volatile. If we take a look at in the past when it has gone up and down, the movements have been fairly condensed. Like this here was a period of, well, that was 39 days. Let's go like right there. So this is a period of 22 days where it dropped 11%, and then it happened to come right back up again, 12%. But we can see that a lot of these movements, there's a 12% there in a period of 5 days, but a lot of these movements here, they're a lot smaller movements. So the volatility is starting to get a little bit tight. Then, sure enough, April 1st, is when it dropped down and has been coming back up. So this drop here coincided with the stock market crash. So it's again, paper contracts. And the coming back and rising again hasn't created new highs. And that's because most people are gravitating more towards gold, not knowing that silver is so undervalued. silver should be 1/10 the price of gold. And if gold is at $3,200 and silver's only at $32, that's only 1%. So silver is a very, very strong, asset right now with huge potential to 10x. We see that kind of growth usually is reserved for cryptocurrencies or penny stocks. But here we have silver in a position where a 10x would be very normal. Moving on to other cryptos. This is the Global 30 crypto index, still in a downward trend at the moment. We can see that it's pressing upwards above this resistance right here. It's pressing above that short term at the moment. We would need to see it rise above this $20,000 level, that price point there. We need to see it rise above that and then find support before we can say that there's a reversal of a trend. Right now, following that timeline, we will likely see another dip. We typically don't, when we see lower lows like this, it doesn't usually stop unless the low meets the previous low and then finds support. Until it finds support, we can expect the price to drop again. So where does it going to drop next? I don't know, but the next support level that hasn't been reached is dropping down to the 13,700, maybe 13,800, 13,900 technically. Yeah. So that this next price drop is the most likely thing to occur. However, if it drops and only finds support at this 14.9 area where it landed last time, that might be like if it hits again and stays above that, maintains a price level above that, that does indicate the potential for a reversal. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out this week, especially. In Bitcoin, you can see a little bit of a better price action. Again, this is the daily chart. And so overall, we can see that this is doing very, very well. In fact, maintaining itself above these highs that were above before the election. Maintaining itself above that. However, it does have lower lows. And this high here is not yet higher than the previous high. So what does that mean? Well, if we experience more of a drop in price, could very well come back to to levels prior to election. At the same time, this support level at 74.3 is going to be very strong, and that it would require a great deal amount of force for it to drop below that. And I believe that we'll probably see it happen in a very short period of time, but that those lows will get scooped up by both institutional traders and the people alike, simply because the pro-crypto policies that are coming forward to America are, I think, in essence, helping back the American dollar. Next, we have Ethereum still forming lows at a consistent rate. In fact, the low that it just hit over the weekend, that was actually last Tuesday. The low that was hit and Thursday, it ended up going below the levels that we saw in October, where we thought it was already low. And in fact, the last time it was traded at this low was March of 2023. So very, 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 very good time to buy. And I think that what we're going to see is this will probably recollect itself and build back to these levels here at 148% growth. Probably going to see that occur within a matter of a week or 2 weeks from the time we finally create a new high. As you can see, these highs just keep getting lower and lower and lower. And so we can't say that it's going to go up yet. Not until we get above, especially this level of support right here. We need to get above this, get the price above it and come back, test it. And then from a confirmation going upwards, we would see a bullish trend begin to appear. When that happens, I don't think it's going to take long for it to come back up to these highs that we saw in December of last year. And again, that's a nice increase. XRP, It's actually formed a lower low as well. This is on the 4-hour chart. I'm going to go back to the daily chart. However, in the big scheme of things, it's very encouraging. As you can tell, as you can see here from November, this 50-cent price point here, went up 400%, and again 560% over the first few months of winter. Since that time, it's been coming back down, finding some support here. In fact, if we take a look and zoom in, we can see that this point right here, this high point, that has become the support. Now, again, we need to see these highs get above the previous highs in order for us to know that we actually are experiencing a reversal. We may see another downward trend coming down, testing the $1.27 level. That's entirely possible. Be ready for it. If it does happen, you can bet your boots that I'd be buying, simply because that support there is what we had formed immediately after the elections. ADA, actually showing similar price action to XRP, and it is not forming lower lows right now. In fact, right now, even though there has been downward trend, we keep on butting up against this 50-cent line. And that tells me that's a very psychological level for a lot of people who are holding ADA. And likely we will see another bounce of it, possibly a test of it coming down close. I've got positions on my leveraged trading, which spread that risk out towards the bottom. And from here, my anticipation is that we would see another big push to come and challenge these highs that we tried out at the beginning of March. Is that what that was? Yeah, March 4th. March 2nd, rather. That high there is going to be the next movement that we're going to see. Might see a couple zigzags between here and there, but it'll be a fairly swift movement to come and challenge that level. And then from there on, it'll be to challenge the 2024 high at $1.33. Doge, also experiencing lower lows. We can see though that it has been bouncing down less. Every time it's been going down quite a ways. But the last time it went down, it didn't go down nearly as much. And so that indicates that we're starting to see a reversal. In order for us to confirm that, we would need the price to rise above the previous high here at 20 cents. Once it reaches above that, we'd like to see a little bit of a test, rebound off of that support in order to find some new highs. There are quite a few levels for Dogecoin to reach though. So I'm just going to quickly see if I can't. No, my little pen tool so I can draw directly on there, it's not working. So we've got a few levels. We've got one here. I'll just grab this. We've got a level here that we need to get past. We have another one here, and then another one here. So unlike ADA, where like ADA itself it has a few levels as well to beat, but because of this banker's candle and how easily it went past those points, I believe that we're going to see that type of thing again. Whereas with Doge, because of the lack of bankers candles giving us that indication that we've got this nice strong straight line up going upwards, I believe we're going to see this occur in stages. Next, Injective token also forming new lows. Very, very good time to buy right now, sitting at just above $8 with an all-time high of, is that right? That all-time high of $53 from last March. This is a great opportunity. In fact, that provides a 550% return for those who are holding from this point here. Now, of course, I came in mid-June of last year, and so right now my position is down 66%. But that doesn't stop me from buying some more and increasing my position. In fact, right now, the way that it is if I put in $1,000 in the summer, I could put another $1,000 in now, and I would more than double my holdings. Even though I'm doubling the amount that I'm putting in fiat, I would more than double the amount of Injective token. So right now is a great time to buy. Algorand also, although it has a very much shorter timeline, being an altcoin in the way that it is, this low here is not forming all-time lows. And it's very possible that this is the support that it needs for it to continue rising. As we can see, the high that we formed in Algorand back at the beginning of December is well within reach. We do have a few levels to get past, I would say around the 30-cent level, and then again another one at the 43-cent level. But then after that, it would be very, very easy for it to reach that 61 cents. There isn't a lot. Yeah, there isn't anything really as far as resistance between those 2 points. In the Mantra DAO, we can see a massive drop and a crash in a very real sense. It's interesting. I don't know what happened, if there was something that happened in the news or something like that, but it was trading at $6.24, dropping to a low of 54 cents. That is significant. In fact, that is a 90% drop that occurred overnight. Some people would say that would indicate the end of that DAO. Under Optimus, you can see again lower lows occurring, similar to what we've seen in Ethereum, and that makes sense. Optimism is built off of the back of Ethereum, and so a lot of the coins necessary, or if you want to buy Optimism, you typically, if it's not through an exchange, you're going to have to get some Ethereum to swap it first. And so, yeah, the price is following a very similar lower low pattern that we saw within Ethereum. Fetch AI is also forming lower lows. However, we can see that those lows are getting closer together in distance from each other. And again, that's an indicator that we're starting to see a turn in the other direction. We would need to see this support line be held, though. If it drops again, we would probably see prices coming down towards 24 cents before rallying back up. Another good position to come in. Polygon also forming new lows. In fact, it's the lowest it's been since it's been on Coinbase. And this low here coincides with another great opportunity to buy, because even if it just comes back to the previous high, that's a 314% rise in value. Coming back to the all-time high, that'd be a 1,400% rise in value. Can't go wrong with that. Desync, also very, very low. This is one of my favorite assets that I like to talk about when it comes to the decentralization of storage and the processing of that information via AI. This asset, I believe, is going to be one of the major players for the small businesses and entrepreneurs that want to get started. And so I think that coming back to its all-time high with a 252% increase, it's going to be very easy for it to do. We do have a few places where might be some resistance in the price, but that's going to be quite short-lived. 0x0. 0x0 is actually not forming new lows. At the moment, we have a high that beat out the previous high, and this low here is higher than the previous low. And so that's encouraging to see. However, I would like to see one more push coming back up above even this high here. That way I would have a higher confidence in its ability to overcome the bears. 0x0 is very similar to Desync in that way, in the same field, looking for the privatization of AI specifically. PAL also very low at the moment. It formed some nice lows here that were tempting to create to break the market structure of this support, but it seemed to only just be tempted to do so, and is even now forming a new high above the previous high. Again, like to see confirmation of that. I would like to see this area actually become support where we make a clean break coming back down to test it before heading up. That gives me the confirmation that the trend is shifted. Right now, things are very marginally consolidating, but encouraging to see nonetheless. At 14 cents right now, going back up to its previous all-time high, be a 530% increase. WorldCoin, for real-world assets, especially in the gaming world, right now is at a very, very low price, 74 cents. In the past, it's even the previous high that we experienced in the beginning of December. That's 440% up from where we are right now. So if you were thinking about getting this would be a very good time being at this low. Neural AI, which is this particular asset, is wrapped on Ethereum, is also finding some lower lows. This high here needs to be beat in order for us to know that it's going to be reversing. These prices, again, buy these dips because this wealth transfer that I talk about, where the money is leaving the stock market and that money doesn't disappear, it just goes from one form to another. The form that it's headed is into AI, into the digital realm. And so a lot of these assets that I'm talking about are where that money is being positioned already. Not necessarily directly into these assets. I'm not so concerned about catching the ones where the institutions are placing their money. I would like to catch some of the opportunities that are being headed up by the Free Enterprise Network. Here's Beam, another video. This is a gaming community. Beam is very, very low right now at 1/2 of 1 cent at the moment, going up to 4 cents at the all-time high. That's going to give us a 590% return. This is another one that I believe is going to take some time just because it's not in AI directly. So we're probably going to see some more movement from AI before we see this take off. But at the same time, as the months wear on, we'll likely see it challenge the various points of resistance. FAR, beautifully down now at 1/10 of 1 cent. So the growth that is there, that's available for people, is considerably larger than when I got in. In fact, when I got in, it was only expected to be about a 25x return coming back to the all-time high. Today, that is actually more like a 95x going back to the all-time high. That's on Farcana. With Superverse also at a very much a low at the moment. Coming back to the previous high would bring a 313% increase. Going to the all-time high would be closer to 700%. This community here is cult-like. The fact that they went through this dark night of the soul and still created higher highs in 2024 is indicative of their ability to create a cult-like behavior within their holders. And I believe that what we're seeing here is the bottom, considering that it has been hit now 3 times in the last, 3 times in the last year. So that there is indicative that these people that went through the dark night of the soul, they're not interested in selling. They're here for the long haul. Clearpool, which is a real world asset, is down at 13 cents right now, just below 14 cents. We can see that the 2 lows that were formed it didn't form a new low, and so again, this tells us that we are the potential is very high that this is now a reversal. We would need to see a new high created higher than the previous high for us to confirm that. Much like the other assets in the ecosystem, non-playable coin similarly has created a new low that's higher than the previous low, and a high that definitely beat out the string of highs that got lower and lower throughout March. So right now, with this high being the marker, I'd like to see the price get up above that and use it as support going forward. SPX also at a low. It's creating some higher highs and higher lows at the moment. In fact, this high here did beat out the previous high that was before this dip, and this low here is of course higher than the previous low. However, we also see a lot of volatility here. And now this doesn't necessarily mean anything bad is happening. It's just good to know that with that volatility, we can expect some That volatility could translate into greater volatility on higher time frames. On the daily chart, it just looks like a bunch of squiggly lines going back and forth, crossing back and forth upon each other. And so we call that consolidation. Whenever there's consolidation, a lot of positions are being taken, whether they're bullish or bearish is really up to what we see come to fruition. At the same time, though, on chain, we can see that the majority of positions being taken are bullish. When people are buying the coin outright, holding it in their wallets, that is a pretty good indication that it's going to be going up. But we have to also remember this is both NPC and SPX, they are meme coins. And so they are largely driven only by their community, not by any other driving force. Arguably, community is the asset that we all need to be chasing. It's that we have an entire monetary system that is rooted and entrenched in old mentalities. And that's going to be a while before community proves itself more valuable than what the value is being placed in the traditional markets today. There we have it. That's market analysis for, that's a wide range of assets that we follow. Everything from things that we've purchased to other things that within our community that we have bought together. And so, yeah, it's a wide range of assets from various market caps and industries, focusing in mostly on AI, real world assets, and gaming, with a little bit of a few infrastructure coins in there as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us market analysis today. If you have any questions, you can feel free to connect with us at manknownasppaul.com. And from there, you can either set an appointment, connect with me on social media, and or join Next Gen Merchants. And from there, you can be a part of our thriving group where we are sharing and masterminding with each other solutions and ways that we can pioneer this new renaissance as we head through this great period of time. It looks like a recession for a lot of people, but for me, it looks like the beginning of something new and very exciting, very prosperous. Again, have a good day. We'll talk to you later.